The transport ship landed with a low hum on the dusty landing field. The sky above was dim with the pale light of a red sun. Men and women of the human expedition stepped out one by one. They had been sent to build a base on this far world, a place the humans called Kara Prime. The planet was known for its harsh storms, wide deserts, and scattered alien tribes. Few people expected anything more than hard work and survival on this frontier. Among the group stood Ryan, a man who had spent most of his life working in colonies far from Earth. He was used to difficult conditions and rough people. He believed he knew how to judge others quickly. In his mind, strength and skill mattered above everything else. Anyone who was weak would only slow the group down. The humans were not alone on Kara Prime. The local tribes had agreed to help in exchange for trade. Among them were beings smaller than humans, with delicate frames and quiet voices. They had large eyes that shone like glass under the light. Most humans ignored them, thinking they were too fragile to be of any real help. One of these aliens was a young girl named Lyra. She was smaller than most of her kind. Her steps were careful, and her arms were thin. When she walked with the others, even her own people looked past her. To human eyes, she looked almost breakable. Ryan noticed her when they first met near the supply tents. She had been sent as a guide by her tribe. Her task was simple, to help the humans understand the land, warn them of dangers, and lead them to water sources. But when Ryan looked at her, he frowned. "This one is too weak," he said quietly to another human worker. "She will not keep up. We need someone stronger." The worker shrugged. "She is who they sent. Maybe she knows more than she looks." But Ryan did not believe it. He had seen many colonies fall apart because the weak were trusted. He decided he would not rely on her. Days passed as the humans built their base. They worked with heavy machines, raised walls, and dug trenches. The sun was hot, and storms rolled in often. The alien tribes came and went, offering help and trade. Among them, Lyra walked quietly, pointing out safe paths and showing where water could be drawn. Still, Ryan ignored her. He trusted his own judgment more than the voice of someone he thought so fragile. But others began to notice something about her. When the storms grew strong, she knew where to stand so the wind would not strike so hard. When food supplies were low, she found roots hidden under the sand. She never raised her voice, never demanded attention, yet her guidance saved time and energy again and again. One evening, as the workers rested by the campfires, a sudden alarm spread through the base. A group of large native beasts had broken through the outer fences. They moved with heavy steps, their bodies covered with scales, their eyes glowing in the dark. Humans grabbed their weapons and rushed to the barrier. Ryan was among the first to reach the fence. He fired at the creatures, driving them back, but more came from the shadows. The air filled with shouts and smoke. Panic rose as the line began to break. In the middle of the chaos, Lyra stood at the edge of the camp. She raised her small hand and shouted in her own language, her voice sharp and clear. At first no one listened, but then she ran forward, pointing toward the ground where the beast stepped. "Do not fight them here," she called in broken human words. "Ground is hollow. They will break through." Ryan turned, confused. He saw her small figure waving at him, her eyes wide. He almost ignored her again. But then the ground shook under his boots. Cracks spread across the earth, and suddenly part of the fence collapsed as the beast smashed through the weakened ground. The humans stumbled back, almost trapped. Ryan's heart pounded. He realized if they had stayed there, many would have been crushed. He shouted to his team to fall back the way Lyra pointed. They moved quickly, firing as they retreated. Lyra led them toward higher ground, where the earth was firm. From there, they fought together, driving the beasts away. The attack ended with only minor injuries, though the camp was damaged. When the danger passed, the humans gathered to catch their breath. Ryan looked at Lyra, standing quietly with dust on her clothes. She had not fought, she had not carried a weapon, yet she had seen what none of them had. A worker clapped her on the shoulder. She saved us. Without her, we would have been buried down there. Ryan felt a twist of shame inside. He had judged her from the first moment, thinking she was useless. Now he saw that her knowledge had kept them alive. He walked over to her, unsure of what to say. "You knew the ground would break," he said slowly. Lyra looked up at him, her voice soft. "My people walked this land for many years. I listen to the earth. It speaks if you are quiet." Ryan had no answer. For the first time, he wondered what else she might know, what other dangers she could guide them through. That night, as the fires burned low, he lay awake. He thought about strength. Perhaps it was not only in muscle or weapons. Perhaps true strength was in seeing what others could not. He looked toward where Lyra sat with her people, her small frame outlined by the firelight. For the first time, he did not see her as weak. Still, he was not ready to trust her fully. Old habits were hard to break. Yet something had changed. A seed of doubt had been planted in his mind, and with it, a spark of respect. The base would need rebuilding, and more dangers would come. He knew they could not survive on brute force alone. And though he did not yet admit it, he would soon learn that the girl he ignored carried secrets far greater than he imagined. The next morning, the camp buzzed with noise. Workers hammered new supports into the ground, while others carried debris away from the broken fence. The attack from the beasts had shaken everyone. Many whispered that without the alien girl, more lives would have been lost. Ryan tried to keep his focus on the work. He lifted heavy beams, directed men where to place them, and studied maps of the surrounding land. But in the back of his mind, he kept replaying the moment when the ground cracked beneath his feet. Lyra had seen the danger before anyone else. When he looked across the camp, he often found her moving quietly between groups. She spoke to the humans only when needed, guiding them with short instructions. Her eyes seemed to notice everything, from the shifting of the wind to the patterns in the soil. Most still overlooked her, but some began to nod in respect when she passed. One evening, as the red sun sank low, Ryan gathered a team to scout beyond the hills. Their supplies were running low, and they needed a reliable source of water. Several streams marked on their maps had already dried up. The desert stretched far, and storms made travel dangerous. The leader of the human camp suggested that Lyra should join them. "She knows the land better than anyone," he said firmly. Ryan felt uneasy. He remembered her warning during the attack, yet his pride resisted. Still, he could not deny that her guidance might save them again. He finally nodded. "She can come." The next morning, the small team set out. Ryan walked at the front with a rifle across his back. Two workers followed behind carrying equipment. Lyra walked silently at the rear, her light steps leaving barely a trace on the sand. For hours they crossed rocky ground. The sun burned overhead, and dry winds cut across their faces. Ryan checked his compass often, leading them toward a valley where he hoped to find water. But after half a day, all they found was dust and dry stone. Ryan frowned at his map. There should be something here, he muttered. Lyra stepped forward, her eyes scanning the ground. She knelt and pressed her palm against the earth. For a long moment she was still. Then she shook her head. The water moved. Storms buried the old stream. You search wrong place. Ryan's jaw tightened. And where should we search then? She raised her arm and pointed toward the horizon, where dark cliffs rose in the distance. There. The earth is heavy with water under the stone. The workers exchanged doubtful looks. Ryan wanted to argue, but something in her calm tone held him back. At last he sighed. Fine. We go your way. The journey to the cliffs took another day. They camped at night under the open sky, taking turns on watch. As Ryan sat by the fire, he glanced at Lyra sitting apart from the others. She hummed softly in her own language, her voice carrying a strange melody that blended with the wind. He could not understand the words, yet the sound eased his mind. By morning they reached the cliffs. Lyra led them to a crack in the stone where cool air flowed out. She tapped the wall with a small stone and listened carefully. Then she nodded. Dig here. The humans began to work, breaking the stone with tools. Hours passed, sweat ran down their faces, and just when doubt crept in, a spray of damp earth burst forth. Water trickled down into the sand. Soon a small pool formed, clear and fresh. The workers cheered. They filled their canteens and splashed their faces. Ryan stared at Lyra, astonished. She had been right again. Without her, they might have died of thirst. That night, as they camped near the pool, Ryan approached her. How did you know this was here? He asked. She looked at him with calm eyes. My people listen to the earth. We hear its song. You humans are strong, but you do not listen. Ryan sat quietly, her words echoing in his mind. For the first time, he admitted to himself that he had been wrong about her. She was not weak. Her strength was simply different. The next day they prepared to return to the camp, carrying news of the water. But before they could leave, Lyra grew tense. She pressed her ear to the ground and frowned. Something comes. Heavy steps. Ryan gripped his weapon. The workers froze. Soon the earth began to tremble. From behind the cliffs emerged a massive creature, larger than the beasts that had attacked the camp. Its hide was thick and spiked, and its roar shook the air. The humans opened fire, bullets striking its scales but barely slowing it. The beast charged, smashing rocks aside. Ryan shouted for the workers to fall back, but there was nowhere to run. Lyra darted forward, raising both arms. She shouted words in her language, her voice sharp and commanding. The beast stopped for a moment, as if confused. It lowered its head, sniffing the air. Then with a grunt, it turned away and lumbered back into the cliffs. The humans stood in stunned silence. Ryan stared at her in disbelief. What did you do? Lyra lowered her arm slowly. I spoke the old words. The beasts know our voice. They will not fight if they hear respect. Ryan felt his heart pounding. She had saved them again, not with weapons, but with knowledge that none of them had. When they returned to the camp, the humans welcomed them with cheers for the water they brought. But whispers also spread about the alien girl. Some feared her strange voice. Others admired her gift. Ryan, however, began to feel a change within himself. He no longer saw her as a fragile outsider. He saw her as someone carrying secrets that could mean survival for them all. Yet he also sensed that those secrets ran deeper than he could imagine. Late at night, as the camp grew quiet, he found himself watching her once more. She sat by the fire, her eyes reflecting the flames. There was a sadness in her face, as if she carried a burden too heavy for her small frame. Ryan did not speak to her then. But he made a silent promise. He would learn what she was hiding. And when the time came, he would stand beside her. The days after the discovery of the water brought new energy to the human camp. With a steady supply nearby, the workers built faster, raised stronger walls, and planned for a longer stay on Kara Prime. But while most celebrated, Ryan remained uneasy. He could not forget the moment when the giant beast had obeyed Lyra's voice. It was clear now that she held knowledge beyond maps and hidden streams. She carried secrets tied to the land itself. And though she was small and often ignored, Ryan began to believe that her role in their survival was far greater than anyone had guessed. One evening, as Ryan sharpened his blade near the fire, the camp leader approached him. "Ryan," he said, "the girl has proven useful. But I need you to keep an eye on her. Some of the men are wary. They say she speaks to beasts. They fear she might bring danger to us." Ryan looked at the leader with steady eyes. "She saved us twice. Without her, we would not be here." The leader sighed. "I know. But fear spreads quickly. Watch her. Make sure her secrets are not harmful." Ryan nodded. He understood. Fear of the unknown had ruined many colonies before. Still, he felt a strange duty to protect her from suspicion. The next day, Lyra guided a small group into the hills to gather rare plants for medicine. Ryan volunteered to join. The others grumbled, but they accepted his presence. The path was steep, the air thin, and the rocks sharp underfoot. Lyra walked ahead with quiet confidence, her small frame moving gracefully over the terrain. The humans followed with heavier steps. At one point, Ryan noticed a pattern in the cliffs. Carvings, faint but visible, ran across the stone. He called to Lyra. "What are these marks?" She paused, her eyes narrowing. "Old words. My people carved them long ago." "What do they mean?" "They speak of a cave where the earth remembers. A place of power. We should not go there." But as she spoke, one of the workers laughed. "Stories carved on stone. Nothing more." He pressed forward, following the markings deeper into the hills. The others, curious, followed as well. Ryan walked beside Lyra, watching her expression grow tense. She whispered, "It is dangerous. The cave should remain hidden." Yet soon they reached it. A wide crack in the rock led into darkness. Strange symbols lined the entrance, glowing faintly under the dim light. The air that drifted out was cool, carrying a scent of earth and stone untouched for ages. The workers argued to enter. Ryan hesitated, then turned to Lyra. "Tell me the truth. What lies inside?" She lowered her gaze. "Memories of the first ones. My people say the cave holds knowledge that must not fall into greedy hands. If you go inside, the earth itself will test you." Her words filled Ryan with unease, yet his curiosity pulled at him. He had spent his life on frontiers, seeking the unknown. To turn back now felt impossible. "Stay close," he told the others. "We go in, but we stay ready." They stepped into the cave. The walls shimmered with crystal veins that pulsed faintly with light. The deeper they went, the stronger the glow became, until the walls seemed alive with energy. The group reached a wide chamber. At its center stood a stone pillar covered in carvings. Strange symbols ran across its surface, shifting as if alive. One worker touched the pillar, and suddenly the chamber shook. The ground split, and a low rumble echoed through the cave. From the shadows, shapes began to move. Figures of stone rose from the floor, their eyes burning with light. "Defend yourselves!" Ryan shouted, raising his weapon. The stone guardians advanced. The humans fired their guns, but bullets cracked harmlessly against their rocky bodies. Panic spread as the creatures closed in. Then Lyra stepped forward, her voice rising in song. She sang words in her ancient tongue, clear and strong. The guardians paused, their movements slowing. Her song echoed through the chamber, filling the air with a strange calm. Ryan watched in awe as the towering guardians lowered their arms and stepped back. The ground steadied, and silence returned. Lyra's voice fell quiet. She turned to Ryan, her face pale. "You should not have entered. The guardians sleep until called. Now they know humans walk here." Ryan lowered his weapon, breathing hard. "What is this place, truly?" She looked at the glowing pillar. "It is memory. My people believe the first ones came from the stars long before humans. They shaped the land, taught us to listen. This pillar holds their voice. It must not be disturbed." The workers muttered, uneasy. Some wanted to flee at once. Others whispered about treasures and hidden power. Ryan silenced them with a sharp glare. "No one touches anything," he said firmly. "We leave now." On the way back, he walked beside Lyra. His respect for her had grown stronger than ever. She had faced danger with nothing but her voice, and she had saved them again. Yet he sensed that she carried more secrets still. That night, Ryan could not sleep. He thought of the guardians, the glowing pillar, and the strange song that had calmed the storm of stone. The humans on Kara Prime had come seeking land and resources, but he now wondered if they had stepped into something far greater. As the camp slept, Ryan sat by the fire and whispered to himself. "What are you hiding, Lyra? And why does it feel like our survival depends on you?" Far across the camp, Lyra sat awake as well. She looked at the stars with sad eyes. She knew the humans had begun a path that could not be reversed. The earth remembered, and soon, the truth of the first ones would rise again. The memory of the hidden cave weighed heavy on Ryan. Even as the camp returned to its daily rhythm of building and farming, he felt the echo of stone guardians in his bones. He could not shake the image of Lyra standing before them, her voice turning their fury into silence. Some of the humans whispered openly now. They said the alien girl carried strange power. Some called her a blessing. Others feared she was a curse. Ryan noticed the way men looked at her when she passed. Their eyes were filled with either awe or suspicion, and both could be dangerous. One evening the camp leader called a council. The humans gathered in a wide circle around the central fire. The air was tense, shadows flickering across worried faces. The leader raised his voice. "We came to Kara Prime to build a home. But the land is not empty. We face beasts, storms, and secrets older than us. Yesterday, a group of workers brought news of a cave filled with moving stone. This is no ordinary world. We must decide how to act." The crowd murmured. Some demanded that the cave be sealed. Others argued that the knowledge inside could give them power. Ryan remained silent, watching Lyra at the edge of the circle. She sat quietly, her small hands folded in her lap, her eyes lowered. At last one man stood and pointed at her. "The girl leads us into danger." She sings to monsters. She walks in places no human should. How do we know she does not plan to betray us? The firelight flickered across faces filled with unease. The leader looked troubled. Ryan rose to his feet. She saved us more than once, Ryan said firmly. Without her, we would have no water, and many would be dead. She has given us nothing but truth. The accuser sneered. Or so she makes you think. Before the leader could answer, the ground began to tremble. A deep roar rolled through the night. People leapt to their feet as the earth split near the edge of the camp. From the darkness, shadows poured forth. Creatures unlike any they had seen crawled out, their bodies twisted, their eyes glowing with pale fire. Panic broke across the camp. Workers grabbed weapons, children screamed, and the walls shuddered under the assault. Ryan drew his blade and shouted orders, trying to form a defense. But the creatures moved like living smoke, slipping through gaps and striking with claws of shadow. In the chaos, Lyra stood at the center of the storm. She raised her arms and shouted words in her ancient tongue. Her voice carried over the roar of battle, sharp and desperate. Some of the shadows slowed, but more poured in. Ryan fought at her side, slashing at any creature that came near. What are these things? He cried. Lyra's face was pale with fear. They are the memory of the first ones. They wake when the land is disturbed. They should not be here yet. The battle raged through the night. Fire spread through the camp, and men fell under the weight of the shadows. Just when it seemed they would be overrun, a great flash lit the sky. A storm of lightning struck the ground beyond the walls, splitting the earth and scattering the creatures. With a final wail, the shadows dissolved into mist and vanished into the night. Silence fell, broken only by the crackle of burning wood and the cries of the wounded. The camp lay in ruins. Dozens were hurt, and several had fallen. The people gathered in shock, staring at the destruction. The accuser turned once more on Lyra. You brought this. You led us to that cursed cave, and now the land rises against us. Others muttered in agreement, fear sharpening their voices. Ryan stepped in front of her, his face hard. She did not call them. She fought to drive them back. Blame the earth if you must, but do not blame her. But the damage was done. Doubt spread like fire through the camp. The leader called for rebuilding, yet many cast wary glances at the alien girl. She sat quietly, her head bowed, saying nothing. That night Ryan found her sitting alone beyond the broken walls. The wind carried dust across the plain, and the stars shone faintly above. He sat beside her in silence for a while before speaking. You saved us again, he said softly. She shook her head. No. The shadows came because of me. My people guard the memory of the first ones, but I broke the rule when I entered the cave. The earth remembers. It calls back what was lost. Ryan frowned. Then what are these shadows? They are not beasts. They are fragments of the first ones. When they wake, they hunger for what lives now. If they rise fully, no human and no tribe will survive. Her words sent a chill through him. Then how do we stop them? She looked at him with eyes full of sorrow. There is only one way. We must return to the heart of the cave. The pillar of memory must be sealed again. If it remains open, the shadows will keep rising. Ryan felt the weight of her words. The cave had nearly destroyed them once. To return there was madness. Yet as he looked at the broken camp, he knew there was no choice. The next morning, he stood before the leader and the council. We cannot wait for the shadows to return, he said firmly. Lyra knows how to seal them. I will lead a team to the cave. The leader hesitated but finally nodded. Take who you need. But be warned. If you fail, the camp will fall. Ryan gathered a small group of volunteers, men willing to risk their lives. Lyra joined them without hesitation. Together they set out once more toward the hills. The journey was harsh. Storms swept across the plains, and beasts followed at a distance, their eyes glowing in the dark. Yet through it all, Lyra walked with steady steps, guiding them with quiet certainty. At last they reached the cave. The entrance loomed before them, its carvings glowing faintly once more. The air was thick with the scent of stone and shadow. Ryan tightened his grip on his weapon. This time we finish what we started. Lyra placed her small hand on the stone. The earth will test us. You must trust me. They stepped inside, the light of the crystals guiding their way. The ground trembled, and once more the stone guardian stirred. Ryan raised his blade, but Lyra lifted her hand. Wait, she whispered. Her voice rose in song, stronger and clearer than before. The guardians stopped, their glowing eyes fixed on her. Slowly they stepped aside, opening the path to the pillar. The group reached the center chamber. The pillar pulsed with energy, symbols shifting like fire. The air was thick with power. Lyra stepped forward, her face calm but determined. To seal the memory, I must give a part of myself, she said softly. Ryan's eyes widened. What do you mean? She looked at him, her gaze steady. The earth requires a voice. Mine is tied to the song of the first ones. If I seal it, I may not return. Ryan felt a surge of anger. There must be another way. But she shook her head. This is my burden. My people failed to guard the memory. I must make it right. Before he could stop her, she placed both hands on the pillar and began to sing. Her voice filled the chamber, rising higher and higher, weaving with the energy of the symbols. Light burst forth, wrapping around her small frame. The ground shook as the pillar absorbed her song. The shadows that lingered in the chamber screamed and dissolved into mist. The guardians bowed their heads, their light dimming. Slowly the pillar grew still, its glow fading to silence. When the light cleared, Lyra collapsed to her knees, her voice broken. Ryan rushed forward, catching her before she fell. She was weak, but alive. It is done, she whispered faintly. The shadows will not rise again. Ryan held her close, his heart heavy with both relief and fear. She had saved them once more, but at a cost he did not yet understand. The return to the camp was quiet. The small group moved slowly across the plains, carrying their supplies and guarding the weakened girl at the center. Lyra walked with soft steps, her body tired after sealing the pillar. Yet her eyes still shone with calm strength. Ryan stayed close to her side. He kept glancing at her, searching for signs of danger in her pale face. He had seen many people break under less strain, but she carried herself with quiet dignity. He admired her more than ever, though he worried about what her sacrifice had taken from her. When the group reached the camp, the people rushed to meet them. They saw at once that something had changed. The air felt lighter, the ground steady, as if the very earth had calmed. The leader listened carefully as Ryan told the story of the pillar, the guardians, and Lyra's final song. At first there was silence. Then the people bowed their heads in respect. Some still looked at Lyra with fear, but most now saw her as the reason they were still alive. Without her, the camp would have been lost to the storm of shadows. Days turned into weeks. The camp slowly healed. Broken walls were rebuilt, fields were planted, and watchtowers rose against the horizon. The shadow beasts never returned. Even the great-scaled animals kept their distance. Life began to settle, though scars of the attack remained in every corner. Through it all, Lyra moved quietly among them. She taught the humans how to read the winds, how to find safe ground, and how to listen for danger in the silence of the desert. Her voice was softer now, her strength limited, but her guidance never failed. Ryan spent much of his time near her. At first he told himself it was duty, that he was watching over her because the leader had asked it. But in truth, he had grown to trust her more than anyone. He respected her calm wisdom, and he found peace in her presence. Yet he also noticed the way some men still whispered behind her back. They feared what they could not understand. Ryan knew fear was dangerous. It could break a community as quickly as any enemy. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the desert in red light, the leader called Ryan to his tent. The older man's face was lined with worry. "The camp is strong again," the leader said. "But the people are divided. Many now follow the girl's words. Some say she should lead. Others say she must be sent away before her power brings ruin." Ryan frowned. "She is no threat. She is the reason we survived." The leader's eyes were heavy. "I know. But you must see the danger. Humans fear what they cannot control. If we do nothing, they will tear this camp apart. A choice must be made." Ryan left the tent with anger burning in his chest. How could they doubt her still after all she had done? He walked to the edge of the camp, where Lyra sat gazing at the stars. Her small frame looked fragile in the fading light, yet her posture was strong. She turned as he approached. "You are troubled," she said softly. "They do not trust you," he admitted. "Even now, after everything." Her eyes held no surprise. "Fear does not fade quickly. My people know this. We have always walked in silence, letting others believe we are weak. It is safer that way." Ryan shook his head. "You are not weak. You are stronger than anyone here." She smiled faintly. "Strength takes many shapes. But strength alone does not change hearts. I cannot make your people see me differently. Only you can do that." Her words struck him deeply. He realized then that the final choice was not hers but his. If he stood with her openly, if he spoke with the full weight of his voice, perhaps others would follow. If he stayed silent, she would remain a shadow on the edge of their world. The next day, the council gathered again. Voices clashed, some demanding her removal, others praising her as their savior. At last the leader turned to Ryan. "You have seen more than any of us. Speak. What do you say?" Ryan stepped forward. His voice was steady, carrying across the camp. "When we first came here, I thought strength was in muscle and weapons. I looked at her and saw only weakness. But I was blind. She saved us when beasts attacked. She found us water when we would have died of thirst. She calmed guardians of stone and sealed the shadows that would have destroyed us all. Without her, none of you would be standing here today. You call her weak, but she is the reason we live. If you send her away, you send away our future." The camp fell silent. Faces turned toward Lyra, who stood quietly at the edge of the circle. For the first time, many truly looked at her, not with fear, but with gratitude. The leader raised his hand. "Then it is decided. She stays among us, not as an outsider, but as one of us." A cheer rose from the crowd. Not all joined, but the voices of doubt were drowned by the voices of respect. Lyra lowered her head, a single tear glimmering in her eye. Life in the camp changed after that. Humans and her people worked side by side. They built stronger homes, dug deeper wells, and learned to share knowledge. The tribes brought songs and stories, while the humans brought tools and skill. Together they began to create not just a camp, but a home. Ryan and Lyra spent many days walking the land together. She showed him hidden valleys, secret springs, and places where the earth sang with memory. He listened closely, learning not just her words, but the silence between them. In time, he came to understand what she had meant when she said strength takes many shapes. Strength was not only in the body, but in wisdom, patience, and the courage to face fear with calm. One evening, as they watched the red sun sink beyond the desert, Ryan spoke quietly. "When I first met you, I thought you were nothing. I was wrong. You carry more strength than I ever knew." Lyra looked at him, her eyes bright. "And you carry the choice to see. That is what makes you different." The days turned to months. The camp grew into a settlement, strong and proud. Traders arrived, drawn by stories of a place where humans and aliens lived as one. The land that had once seemed harsh now carried hope. Yet Ryan knew that none of it would have been possible without the girl everyone had ignored. She had revealed her secret not by force, but by living truth. She had taught them all to see strength where they once saw weakness. On the anniversary of their arrival, the people gathered to celebrate. Fires burned bright, voices lifted in song, and children danced in the dust. Lyra stood among them, no longer on the edge but at the heart. Ryan watched her with quiet pride. He remembered the moment he had judged her unworthy. Now he knew that moment had been the beginning of everything. As the stars filled the sky, he whispered to himself. Humans came here thinking they would teach. But it was she who taught us all. And so the story of the settlement on Kara Prime became a story of unity. A story of how one small alien girl changed the fate of many. A story of how strength can be found in the most unexpected places.